In this video, we're going to be going over the getDelimitersList method. This method is going to be given a string array of tokens where each token is either an open delimiter as defined by this field openDel, a closed delimiter as defined by this closedDel field, or a substring that is not a delimiter. So we need to write a method that returns an array list containing all the open and closed delimiters in their original order. Let's go ahead and start with the pseudocode. So the first thing we're probably going to want to do is create a new array list to store the delimiters in. Why do we need to create a new array list when we're being passed in this array? Well, we're not actually going to be modifying the array that's being passed in, and we need to construct this new array list because that will be the data structure that contains the information that we will need to return. Next thing we need to do is loop over the tokens, and within that loop we're going to want to check if the token at a certain index is equal to openDel or closedDel. So if that token at that index is equal to openDel or closedDel, then what we need to do is we want to add it to our new array list. And then, since this method returns an array list of strings, we're going to want to return the array list we created. And that should be it for our pseudocode. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual code of this. Creating a new array list. So this is going to look like array list string, capital S string. Let's go ahead and call this delimiters equals, because an array list is an object, we're going to be using that equals new array list, and then we're passing in the type of the array list, which is a string. And then make sure to remember your parentheses because we are instantiating a new object. All right, we have our array list. Right now it is empty. So if, for example, the tokens array that we were passed in was empty, we would return an empty array list, which would be the correct implementation, but we have to loop over those tokens. So let's go ahead and use a little for loop for this. So starting at index 0 all the way to tokens.length, using .length because that is the array property that will give us how long this array is. And then we want to look at each of these tokens one by one, so we do I++, right? Now within our for loop, we want to check if the token at a certain index is equal to openDel or closedDel. So basically if that token is a delimiter or not. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the token there. So string token equals tokens at I. So what I'm doing there is I'm indexing the tokens array based on our I value, which is our index to get the token. And we need to check if token is equal to openDel or closedDel. Instead of using equals here, since we're doing string comparison, we're going to want to do dot equals openDel. And then since we're going to be adding it to our array list, if it's an open delimiter or a closed delimiter, we can add an or symbol here, or if the token equals closedDel. Within this, what this means is if we pass one of those two conditionals, we're going to want to add that to our delimiters array list. So we use the array list method add, and we pass in that token. So now if we determine that that token was one of the delimiters, we have added it to our array list. That's all the logic we need within our for loop, so we can go ahead and exit it and return the delimiters array. And that should be it for our code. Let's go ahead and test it out with these two examples that we've been passed in. So the first one, the openDel, is this open parenthesis, and the closedDel is a closed parenthesis. So we're being passed in an array that looks like this, and we want to go ahead and just grab the delimiters from that list. So if we go through the code, we create that new array list. So right now it's empty, there's nothing inside of it. We loop over the tokens, so tokens.length is 4, so we check is 0 less than 4. Yes, it is, so we go inside of the for loop. We grab the token at the 0th index, so that would be this open parenthesis. Does that equal the open delimiter or the closed delimiter? Yes, it does. It equals the open delimiter. So we go ahead and add that to our array list. So now our array list has that open parenthesis inside of it. So it looks like this. We increment I is now 1. Is 1 less than 4? Yes, it is. So we move on to the string at the first index. So that would be x plus y. Unfortunately, this doesn't equal either the open delimiter or the closed delimiter, so we do not add it to our delimiters array list, and we move on to the next index in our array. The value at the second index is this close parenthesis. This equals the close delimiter, so we can go ahead and add that to our delimiter array list. Let's move on to the next and final value within our array, which is this times 5. Fortunately, this also does not equal the open delimiter or the closed delimiter, so we do not add it to our delimiters array list. And the next time we try to increment our I, we get 4. 4 is no longer less than 4, so we exit the for loop and we return the delimiters array, which just has the 2 delimiters that we had in our original array. So it looks like this is good. Let's go ahead and just for fun go through the next example as well. So in this example, our open delimiter is this q inside of these angled brackets, and then a closed delimiter is a closing bracket with a q in it. So the array we're being passed in looks like this. So let's go through it one by one. We're creating that new array list. We are going through our for loop. Is 0 less than tokens.length, which is 5? Yes, it is. So we take a look at the token at the 0th index, which is this string that does equal the open delimiter. So we go ahead and add that to our array list. We move on to the next element, which is this YY. That does not equal either the open or the close. So we move on to the next element, which is this q within these angled brackets, which equals the closed delimiter. So we go ahead and add that to our array list. We move on to the next element in our array list at index 3, which is ZZ. Unfortunately, that does not equal the open or the closed delimiter. So we move on to the next element, which is the last element in our array, which is this q within these angled brackets. That equals the closed delimiter. So we add it to our delimiters array list, and then when we try to increment I again, 5 is not less than 5, so we get to exit our for loop, and we will be returning these values inside of our array list, and that matches up with what the example returns. It looks like our code is good to go. If we get rid of the pseudocode, here is what our getDelimitersList method looks like, where we're creating that new array list that we need to return. We're looping over all the tokens inside of the tokens array. We're grabbing it, we're checking if it equals the open or the closed delimiter. We're adding it to the array list if it does, and we're returning the array list of delimiters. So that is about it for this method. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I will get back to you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.